Ooh, welcome on into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and welcome to week one of the NFL and fantasy football season. This is where we begin. I guess we began with the waiver wire video, but I mean, here are the rankings. We're gonna get our lineups set, ready for victory for week one. It's exciting times. I'll go through these in some tiers. For those that are new this season, this will change come week four. I do projections as well, an expected range, typically about a 2/3 of a chance that the players will score within this projected range of mine. But I need data in order to come within, in order to do those projections. And I need, this year's data. And so I prefer to have a minimum of 3 games before doing that. So once we enter week 4, things will be a little bit different with these rankings videos. But one thing will stand true is that I will show you for the wide receiver videos 3 fades, 3 loves, and those are the guys oftentimes that we don't quite have the cojones to put higher in our rankings or to put lower in our rankings. I try to not give you the obvious picks. I try to make it tough on myself in order to be correct on every pick that I make each week. I don't like to pick the obvious choices. I'm not going to tell you that Tyreek Hill is a must start or love him of me this week just because he's in a great matchup. You're starting Tyreek Hill. There's no question about that. So what good does that do? So that is my promise to you, is that I will go out on a ledge, take some risks with those loves and fates, and my expectation from you is to understand that, I am sometimes going out on a little bit of a risk to make those calls and to, make your own decision as well. I will give you some arguments for, against, whatever the case may be. It's up to you to decide if you agree or not. And I think, let's see, I will be going live this season, schedule update, on Thursdays, 1.5 hours prior to kickoff. Saturdays, I'm going to start off at 6:30 p.m. on Saturday, so that way West Coasters, it's about entering that dinner time. East Coasters, hopefully just catching you before you're going to go take a shower, get ready for your Saturday night dates. And then Sunday mornings, and you're all hungover after your successful date, you can come hang out with me 2 hours prior to kickoff, or none of those times, all those times. It's up to you, but I will be available. And of course, just like I'll ask you on this video, please like, comment, subscribe, help support the channel if you want to. You can always donate during those start-sit sessions, or you can become a member of the channel, and there will be some perks that will go online about week 4 as well when I get some data for that. So I will show you some of the perks of that later on in the offseason. For now, I'm excited. You're excited. Let's get on to the rankings. Starting off with the first tier of rankings here, I've just got Tyreek Hill and Amon-Ra St. Brown chilling up here, going up against Jacksonville for Miami. Do you think that there's potential for that to become a high-scoring game? And Jacksonville's defense doesn't scare me too much, so I think Miami's offense should be able to move the ball on them early season. At least Jacksonville's defense, one of those that maybe they'll improve throughout the season. Same with the Los Angeles Rams. I expect them to be better week 17 than they are week 1. Still a very young unit with a lot of pieces working around, so I think that Detroit should be able to find their way against that. Have full faith in these two, as do I really with this next tier of wide receivers, which starts off with Ja'Marr Chase at wide receiver 3. This is one I could move back if he's starting. As of recording, Ja'Marr Chase yet to practice with the team outside of that one day where the head coach got a little too excited and said he's back. I'm fully expecting them to get things figured out by week 2. I don't know. It's up in the air here for week 1. We should know by, let's see, when's this video coming out? Well, we should know by today, Wednesday. Chris Olave going up against Carolina. Obviously, somebody I was high on the offseason, and this is part of the reason. Some good matchups throughout the year for New Orleans, and starting off with one of those really good matchups for New Orleans against Carolina. Definitely a defense who I think will probably at the end of the season be considered the worst defense in the league. Definitely in that argument with just a few other teams. So excited for Chris Olave week 1 against Carolina. Maybe not the highest scoring game, but Chris Olave, we're more banking on a volume of work. Mike Evans going up against Washington, fantastic matchup. They don't have a cornerback who could stop Mike Evans. So as long as Mike Evans is not over the hill yet, this should be a big week for him. So excited about that. A.J. Brown going up against Green Bay. Green Bay's defense, one of those, you never know what you're going to get against these star players. Sometimes they go off. Sometimes they get absolutely shut down. Not a whole lot of middle ground, it feels like, over the years. A.J. Brown's a fantastic wide receiver. You're starting him. Justin Jefferson, I was lower on him in the offseason, but when you're going to give me a matchup against a team like the New York Giants, whose defense should be improved and might even be decent by the end of the season, to start out with, we're going to say that's a pretty good matchup. Sam Darnold should be able to find some lanes for Justin Jefferson to get the ball into his hands. CeeDee Lamb, tough matchup against Cleveland, but still making the second tier here for me. But, expectations not as high as other weeks, or at least the expectation of a possibly poor to average week is higher this week than should be most weeks. That'll bring us on to the second tier of wide receiver, starting off with wide receiver 9. I've got Nico Collins going up against Indianapolis, a secondary who I want to like, but, it's got to get there before it's there, and it's not there yet. Maybe it will be by the end of the season. Coming into it, though, I'm not expecting it to be a super tough matchup for receivers, so Nico Collins being the guy in Houston that we like the most, good week to start him. Davante Adams going up against the Los Angeles Chargers. Another one of those defenses that, especially early on in the season, I know we expect a lot from the coach, but lots of turnover there could struggle to some extent as they have in the past. That's probably a work in progress yet. So Davante Adams, I think, should be able to find some lanes to work with there. I don't know that they really have the tools to handle Davante Adams. It's all about the quarterback getting the ball to him. That was my biggest concern coming into the season. That'll remain a concern, but this is definitely a good week to have Davante Adams. Well, should be, hopefully. Jalen Waddle going up against Jacksonville. Talked about that. I'm expecting good things from Miami's offense against Jacksonville. Garrett Wilson going up against San Francisco. Tougher matchup, so he's lower than I would like to have him in my rankings. Would like to be able to put him into this tier for sure much of the season, but when you're going up against a team like San Francisco, there is pause for concern. And then my wide receiver 13, I've got DJ Moore going up against Tennessee, a defense that's added a lot of pieces. Might actually be pretty decent, so I'm excited for DJ Moore. And when I see the Tennessee name, that excites me too. There's a chance here this could be a tougher matchup, so we'll see, but still getting right into the end here of the definite must-starts, bringing us into, I would still say, pretty much must-start territory, but now, you can see by the size of the tier. Now we're in it. We're starting to maybe ask a couple of questions. We're getting into my fade 'em, love 'em territory. So let's start off with my wide receiver 14 in Drake London going up against Pittsburgh. There's a cornerback there in Pittsburgh that's pretty good. Gives me some pause for concern for Drake London. Puka Nacua going up against Detroit, just like Cooper Kupp. For the most part, this excites me. Detroit's secondary has not been too great. They've made some improvements in the offseason, especially early season here. Expect, that to not be fully gelling yet. If it is successful, there's no guarantee that their improvements are going to make this secondary a whole lot better than it was a year ago anyways. So, we'll see. Coming into this game, it excites me. The only concern here for me is one of the strengths of the Detroit defense outside of their front seven. The strength of the secondary could very well be the nickel spot, the third cornerback, the slot cornerback, whatever you want to call it. That is going to be the person most likely seeing Cooper Kupp the most. And so that's why I have Puka Nacua a little bit higher than Cooper Kupp, a little bit more concerned about the strength of that Detroit defense against Cooper Kupp than I would be about Puka with where they're going to be lining up, etc. When it comes to DK Metcalf, going to be going up against Patrick Surtain, I'm sure plenty in Denver, or I don't know if they're in Denver or Seattle, but against Denver. So obviously that's, concerning, bust candidate territory there for DK Metcalf. Not unlike Drake London, but we're still probably starting him. Malik Neighbors going up against Minnesota. I'm optimistic about this. Minnesota secondary could be one of the worst in the league. We still want to see what this offense looks like, though, so still a little bit hesitant. Otherwise, I mean, Malik Neighbors would be much higher if I had, confidence in the quarterback situation there this week. Cooper Kupp, talked about that. Devonta Smith going up against Green Bay. Green Bay is supposed to be a much more aggressive defense, especially as they're figuring things out. That could open up the big play, something that Devonta Smith could definitely take advantage of in this game. So I'm not, I think there's reason for some upside hopes with Devonta Smith this week. And then Diggs, Tank Dell. We'll figure out this Houston offense as the season goes along, hopefully. But going up against Indianapolis once again should be a decent matchup. So they're basically right where I had them preseason rankings. Marvin Harrison right behind them. Going up against Buffalo, a lot of, the more that Arizona is the underdog, the more that they are facing a good offense, the better the situation. I know there's a lot of concerns out there about this Buffalo offense. Week 1 especially, maybe it's not hitting on all cylinders and putting up 42 points, but at the same time, definitely could, especially against this Arizona defense. So Marvin Harrison Jr., they're going to be, should be a lot of targets coming his way. So that's exciting for him. All right, I just caught on to the fact that you could not see this full tier. I forgot that I had it bigger on my screen. I needed to stop scrolling downwards. So I think we left off at Marvin Harrison going on to Brandon Aiyuk. I don't think I need to explain this concern too much. Going up against the New York Jets, it's a very tough matchup. So definite concern, definite bust territory. I'm sitting him if I can. And that's that. I am sitting him in a league of mine for, I believe, DJ Moore. So easy sit for me there. Michael Pittman Jr. going up against Houston. I think I'm expecting this Houston defense to be pretty good. Derek Stingley Jr. is a concern. That's why I'm a little bit lower on Michael Pittman Jr. than I would like to be here when I see this Houston as the defense. I want to go high, but there is some concern there. T. Higgins, hey, if Jamar Chase isn't playing, he's moving up. He's probably moving up all the way, I think, ahead of DK Metcalf to wide receiver 13 there easily. So we'll see about that, but for now, wide receiver 25 going up against New England. I think New England secondary, they have some pieces. I'm not overly concerned, but they're also not an easy defense. So there's a limitation there, and that's why I'm really, really debating. I might, at the end of this video, put Jamar Chase just a few spots lower than where I currently have him. Deebo Samuel going up against New York Jets. I'm just not as concerned about him as I am Aiyuk in terms of busting completely, because he's just the kind of guy that they manufacture touches to. Doesn't really matter the opponent. He has a safe for floor, I believe, than Brandon Aiyuk in tough matchups. So just put it that way. Chris Godwin going up against Washington. A lot of reason to be optimistic about that. Amari Cooper going up against Dallas. I think there's quite a bit of reason to be optimistic about this too. Stephon Diggs still going to be getting Stephon Diggs. Now, his brother, Trayvon Diggs, going to be literally getting his feet underneath him again after serious injury. Then you've got Deron Bland getting injured in the offseason, out for the year. Didn't bring anything to replace that. I'm not in love with Dallas's secondary, especially out on the perimeters currently. Trayvon Diggs could definitely return to form just fine, be very good. But week 1 here, overall optimistic about Amari Cooper. Rashee Rice going up against Baltimore. This is a love 'em for me this week, and I will tell you exactly why. Expecting Rashee Rice to see a whole lot of Ardarius Washington, a name that, unless you're a draftnik or a Baltimore Ravens fan, you're probably not very familiar with. He was a safety, came out as a safety. He's going to be working out of their nickel this year, or at least to start off with. That's where he is on the depth chart. And he's undrafted, very much. A lot of people liked him. I did too. I think 2 years ago, I think he's coming into his 3rd season. And like I said, I like him, but I mean, totally unproven talent coming in, going up against Patrick Mahomes and Rashee Rice in week 1. Not the easiest matchup in the world. I would think a spot that they would definitely try to take advantage of. And it could be a long day for Ardarius Washington to start off his career. But just in terms of Ardarius Washington, just want to say, Baltimore fan, excited to see him where he's at, following a lot in some ways, through the footsteps of Geno Stone's career path and another successful, hopefully, late round safety that you guys got a few years apart from one another. Jayden Reed going up against Philadelphia. It's, especially early on in the season, what is this Philadelphia defense going to look like? They're going through a lot of changes. It might be a little bit closer to what it looked like at the end of last season than it looked like 2 years ago early on. So I do expect that Philadelphia defense to get much better as the season goes along. But to start with, I'm kind of excited about this. Should be a high-scoring game. All that good stuff working in favor of these receivers in Green Bay and Philadelphia. Terry McLaurin going up against Tampa Bay. Not a defense that always scares me a whole lot. I've just not been much of a believer of that defense over the years, even though I know that they've performed well. And yeah, that's it. So I'm optimistic about Terry McLaurin. That's to bring us on to this next tier of receivers. Through my top 38, from 32 through 38, I've got George Pickens as my second fatum of the video. Going up against Atlanta, got A.J. Terrell that he will be facing up against. That's, a tough matchup. Last season, in full PPR, he allowed an average of 7.5 fantasy points getting scored up against him, and he shadows guys, so that's a very accurate number. And so expect him. There's nobody, who's he going to be shadowing for Pittsburgh? It's obviously going to be George Pickens. So it's going to be rough sledding for George to have a big game. Of course, he always could. But not a great matchup. Definite bust concern this week. If you can sit him, I would. Calvin Ridley going up against Chicago. One of those defenses where you see it, you get excited, but you got to think about it. Go look at the roster. It's actually pretty good. The second cornerback might be the worst spot on it. I don't think that's where Calvin Ridley draws. I think it would be Jalen Johnson that he would see on the other side of him mostly. So we'll see exactly how that works out. But yeah, a little less excited than I normally would be seeing Chicago as the defense for Calvin Ridley. Keenan Allen, same story here on the other side of the ball. Tennessee, surprisingly, could be a pretty good defense. Early on in the season, though, a lot of things that have to come together. So not too concerned about the matchup as much as I am just not sure what to expect from this Chicago offense, and Keenan Allen specifically as a weapon, and Rome Odunze. How does this all work out? I don't know, so I'm going to be a little bit cautious about it week one, not getting overly excited. Christian Kirk, I think somebody who has some high upside that you could get excited about this week. Definitely like closer to a love potential here going up against Miami. Yeah, I mean, I would feel pretty comfortable playing him this week. I might have to move him up a little ways here. I was a little concerned about injury, but as long as he's practicing in full, I think that's going to be all I need to see, and we'll move him up. Zay Flowers, not too much different here. Going up against Kansas City, a little bit of a tougher defense of slate there, so I'm not overly excited about it, but high-scoring game probably. Should see quite a few targets that'll keep him passing, so definitely, as I will be for a lot of the season, I think, was Zay Flowers. Not too concerned about the floor there. Khalil Shakir, another guy, high floor guy, and in a week where we could see a high ceiling as well for him. He's a love because of the defense. They're going up against Arizona. Really, really good matchup to start the season for this Buffalo wide receiver room, receiving room in general. Any guys catching the ball. Should be a big week for a few guys there on that offense, and Khalil Shakir is my bet at wide receiver, best bet at wide receiver to have a big week. And then Romeo Doubs going up against Philadelphia. Talked about that matchup a few times from both sides. It's nothing that's scaring me, that's for sure. That's going to bring us on to my next tier of wide receivers. We're getting towards the end of guys who I'm willing to start, but Courtland Sutton going up against Seattle, not too afraid of that matchup for Courtland Sutton. But there is a little bit of, we got to see it with Bo Nix and everything going on there, how that's going to work out. So, little hesitant to get too excited for Courtland Sutton, but definitely not too far off from some of these guys in this tier. Starting Pickens over him, I could see, that being the wrong choice at the end of the week, but I think it would be a little bit tough to do that as well. So, kind of right in that territory where it gets muddy. DeAndre Hopkins going up against Chicago. Talked a little bit about that. That's surprisingly could be tough kind of secondary there in Chicago. Deontay Johnson got to see it before we believe it type of thing here with Carolina. Going up against New Orleans this week, pretty stingy defense historically for some time now. And don't expect that to change too much. Maybe as the season goes along, age catches up to that defense and they start to wear down. But especially to start it, they're smart. Coming into week 1, going to be a tough, stout matchup for Carolina, who's going to be trying to figure things out. Not expecting a whole lot of scoring in this game, especially on Carolina's side. But volume-wise, could be a good floor, as might be a lot of the season. Christian Watson, Philadelphia, we talked about that matchup. Obviously, some boom upside for Christian Watson. And Xavier Worthy, going to be a guy who I am fading this week. Might be a surprise to you because Kansas City, Baltimore, you think a lot of fireworks, big game. That's an excellent situation. However, when you think about the fact that Xavier Worthy in his first time in the NFL is going to be seeing Marlon Humphrey on the opposite side of him, thanks to Hollywood Brown not being available this game, that's going to be tough sledding. I'm not too excited about the chances of Xavier Worthy coming down with one of those deep targets or too many targets at all. And that's where, we get excited about Rashee Rice in a more favorable matchup, thinking that this could be a 14-target game for Rashee Rice kind of situation. So I am advising you to not get too excited about starting Xavier Worthy this week. That includes DFS. But on the other side of that spectrum, we got Brian Thomas Jr. here in a similar type of situation where, we think that this offense is going to have to try to keep up with Miami's offense, and that could be tough if you can't make a few big plays for a few big touchdowns, and Brian Thomas Jr. could definitely be on the receiving end of a couple of bombs throughout this game. Does he come down with them? I can't tell you, but if he does, 67 yards, a touchdown's going to be a solid day for the 44th wide receiver in my rankings. So I'm loving him this week. I think they're going to want to try to get the ball into his hands a few times. Game flow working in favor of Jacksonville just having to heave it. And that's going to bring us on into these final couple of tiers here. We'll just zoom past this. So this next tier, wide receiver 45 through 51, is JSN going up against Denver. Who knows? Josh Palmer, Rome Odunze, Keon Coleman. I would say a guy who you could, Jameson Williams too. DFS, definite guys you could think about there. Lad McConkey, Jordan Addison, got New York on the other side of the ball there. That brings us on to my final tier here, which starts off with Jerry Jeudy, followed by Josh Downs, Tyler Lockett, Adonai Mitchell, Gabe Davis, Brandon Cooks, Mike Williams, Xavier. It looks like Mike Williams is going to be playing. We'll see for sure. Xavier Legette, Demario Douglas to wrap that up against Cincinnati. That could be a sneaky one for DFS, especially there too. And deep leagues, wide receiver, high floor there against Cincinnati. Possible for Demario Douglas. Although, is he going to be seen? Hold up on that. Yeah, that's Mike Hilton territory. Maybe not. That's one of the better areas of that Cincinnati defense there in the nickel. All right, that is it for the wide receiver video. Running back video will be coming out tomorrow. Or this evening. I know my schedule. I remember Wednesday morning, Wednesday evening for the wide receivers, running backs videos, and then Thursday for the tight ends and quarterbacks videos is I believe, the method of delivery for these videos. So stay tuned for those. Thank you very, very much I hope you liked the video. And let me know in the comments anything that you disagree with, agree with. That always helps too with the algorithm. You know that. All right. Peace out now.